last speaker for the day, and CEO of a microfinance company called Suryoday, where I believe HDFC Limited has stake. So he's two of the 6 speakers who are running unlisted companies for today. And we hope to get some insights on microfinance which would otherwise have escaped us when we interacted with some of the SFBs or microfinance companies who were otherwise part of our forum. So, Baskar.
Good afternoon, my name is Baskar. I run a microfinance organization, a small one at that called Suryoday Microfinance Limited. Sorry for being late, but I don't want to be double defensive. One, already I'm defensive that I'm running a microfinance organization. So I don't want to sound a little more defensive. Let me kind of take you through a broad one. I'm not going to talk about our company, I'm not going to talk about SFB and so on. What I'll take you through is that one question which everybody asks is that you guys are growing at 80-90%. Is that growth real? You guys have a delinquency of 0.15, 0.2 or not more than 1. Is that real? So how much ever first, I think the answers to these questions is that first we should know, at least the players in the industry should know. Is that convincing? Is it good? So I'll take you through just 2 slides just to set the context in terms of is it an overheated market? Is the market, are the customers over-indebted? And how is it that year after year for the last 3 years we are running at 70, 80, 90% growth and still everything seems to be apparently fine, but still not everybody is really convinced that all is good. So this is a quick snapshot of the portfolio of what we have. We have 6,62,000 customers as of say July. This is the indebtedness of the customer across all sorts of borrowing, not necessarily only microfinance. Could have taken a 2-wheeler, could have taken a personal loan. So it adds the data of both the microfinance track. As just to give a perspective, the credit bureaus run 3 separate tracks for consumers, or rather for the borrowers. One is called the microfinance track, where we pay as low as 4 to 5 rupees for a credit report. Then one is the consumer track, where it's up to upwards of 20 to 40 rupees per consumer report. And there is one which is for the corporates. When we have access for a normal loan, when you want to give it to a microfinance customer, we just look at the microfinance borrowings. So from a portfolio analysis, I took out the data of including the other loans which they borrowed, would have been from us itself as an individual loan, would have been from an L&T for a 2-wheeler. Combine this data, this shows the indebtedness. 58.3% of the customers have a net outstanding borrowing of less than 35,000 rupees. Around 20% of the customer have anywhere between 35 to 50 grand. And what we'll have to look at, if at all there is any so-called danger zone for microfinance, is above 75,000 outstanding, is 27,000 customers of our portfolio of 6.62 lakhs, which is just a 4.2%. And above 1 lakh is around 4%. Combined is only 8%. But it's not an individual loan. So high indebtedness of a small percentage of our customers in microfinance could always trigger off a pressure on the rest of them. And the easiest way a person who is not able to pay would do is distract others from not paying so that she is not alone. So she has not flunked the exam alone, she has got everybody in the class has flunked. So that's the kind of a theory which goes on in terms of the pressure in terms of group business. Just as the distance between the flyover I got down and this place, the distance wise it is not very large, very long, but it took lots of time. So at the next slide we'll put reasonably in perspective. So this is the repayment per month of this similar set of customers. So there are 45% of the customers who are paying less than 3,000 rupees per month as a monthly obligation in terms of the loans they have taken. But go to the other extreme, which is the 7,000 plus 7,000 to 8,000 and 8,000. Around 8% of the customers, similar to the numbers where I talked about 75,000, is the repayment capacity. The ideal repayment capacity, surely by experience not putting any numbers in terms of what they earn and cash flow analysis, is 5,000 rupees. Still 5,000 rupees, there is not much of a pressure. Certainly in the urban environment, little okay in terms of the rural setting. Anything above 5 becomes little stressful on a monthly basis for them to pay month after month. So if I have to mix up both this and try to get some interpretation, is that indebtedness per se as an amount, the customers are not overborrowed. From an EMI point of view or the repayment obligation point of view, seems to be a little bit on the higher side than is manageable. The reason is that all of us love doing short-term loans. 1 year loan, comfortable. 1.5, little okay. 2 years, not okay. If you tell me that any microfinance loan in whichever form is 3 years, none of us do it. Very small portfolio of that reminds it. So the answer is yes and no. The same way rear view mirror driving, because the past was good, 100% repayment, I'm increasing the ticket size and going on and on. And pricing different power here between an 18% loan and a 26% loan, the EAWI, if it's a weekly is 15 rupees, 20 rupees. If it's even a monthly, it's 80 bucks. So the 80 rupees is not a pinching factor, unlike in a home loan where between a 9.4 and 9.3 for a 1 crore loan for 20 years, maybe 1,500, 2,000. It's a very insignificant piece of it. So that is not a decisioning factor for the customer. Added to that complexity is that this borrowing is unsecured completely. So it isn't underlying asset. Even if there is a flow of credit is at 0%, if you have to buy a car, I just buy one. I will not buy 5 because it's available at 0%. In unsecured, there is no cap, but people generally tend to also borrow, genuine ones, little ahead of their requirement because they don't have the access to credit when they need it. When I need for a school fee of 25,000 in July, I may not get it. So what I do is I borrow in the month of Feb, thinking that I will hold it in a household or put it in a bank account, which many a times invariably doesn't stay. So the answer for both of this is that the markets, by sheerly many of the players moving up the ticket sizes based on the experience of the past of 10,000 becoming 15,000 becoming 17,000, is indeed building up a small stress from a customer point of view, which has not got reflected either in repayment at this point of time. So each individual player is taking a position in terms of what they need to do in terms of the growth. But what we as a mid-sized organization or a small organization wanting to convert it to a bank, we've chosen not to grow aggressively in this business irrespective of the fact that the repayment is 99.85% and the delinquency 20.5. So this is a long story cut short, so I'll kind of use this forum to interact. I am not going to list immediately, so I have no pressures in terms of showing you the brighter side of the business. I am not in the process of raising private equity, so I have none of these pressures except for a caveat or a caution that I am a little more paranoid than I should be or people should be. So please discount that factor and don't paint the industry as so overheated and so on. Give a discounting factor of 30%.
Someone quick question, the penetration in the state, or like when you go and speak to people, the biggest answer which is very going at 50, 60, 30, 40, depending on the size of people, people will keep going for next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But if one go segment by segment in terms of the way you did a broad analysis of region and the size, what can be the reasonable rate of growth? Because beyond the point, the basic aspirations are being taken care of, and the macro environment of the country keeps growing. But this small ticket size cannot remain small forever. So if I have a 5 or 10 year of horizon of a country as a whole, then my economy will grow from $2 to $5 trillion, which is what everybody keeps talking about. Will this small ticket size business will remain in existence, or this all has to move to SME then MSME, and how the ladder will change? Because these are not existing in developed economy, if one looks at it on a broader picture. And I think that is one of the reasons why everybody wants to start a bank, either in the form of small bank, big bank, or a payment bank or stuff like that. So you being a guy who is not looking for money can give us a much better perspective on that than the guys who are there for raising money or those who are already in the street. They can give us a different picture.
See, for lack of any analogy, to very crude, microfinance institution or kind of lending is like a school. So I cannot take pride in saying my best students have lasted in the school for 20 years. They're supposed to be there for 12 years and move on and like, right? So this microfinance, as it happens today in this country, has still not moved to a point where I am feeling guilty of saying that she has been my customer for 7 years. A bank can say that, no, they have been a Sundaram Finance can say this trucker has been with me for 25 years. Started with 1 and today has got 200, still I have a 20% share of the wallet. But in microfinance, unfortunately, is that we have to kind of let go of the customers or push them up. If it is not pushed up, customers don't actually like it. They don't want to be treated as a group, so they don't have an identity of their own. There is no choice. If there is no choice, you're okay with it. If you have to travel by train in Mumbai, you can't crib, but still do the same. So our customers in microfinance tend to fall into that segment because there is no other avenue which is open. The reason for that is also the similar customer in a group behaves very differently than as an individual. The delinquency for the same customers, if I do it on an individual basis, would be around 5%, write-off would be around 2.5%. As a group, it tends to be at less than 1% delinquency and 0.15 to 0.25% write-off. So when something is going good, why fix if it is not broke is probably where we are all stuck. So the cost of acquisition in terms of any customer in retail, anyone, would be nothing less than 2,000 rupees. So here possibly in a microfinance group model, it probably is as low as 500 rupees or less than that, 300, because your relationship officers also do the collections. So to that extent, at a 4% operating cost or 5% at a very efficient level, if we cannot operate at 5% if it has to be individual lending, then probably the pricing has to be 300 to 400 basis points more. So but that pricing is not acceptable from a political point of view or from a regulator. So who pays the ferryman? Somebody has to pay for it. There is no free ride. So given all the constraints, it comes back and saying that no, continue to do what you are doing. But the beauty of the opportunity, in my personal view, lies in terms of understanding the customer a little more. I have no idea in terms of who my customers are. I know them as a group, I know them as a portfolio, I know them by all cuts and beans in terms of 6,62,000 customers. Do I know at least even 1 lakh customers truly for me to cater to them in a meaningful manner? Probably my portfolio will be much bigger than 1,000 crores, 1,100 crores by catering to this 1 lakh customer rather than to the entire 6,62,000 customers. Which some of them I think have taken a position of moving that direction, not to really leeward any other company. For example, Equitas has taken the path of saying I don't want to grow in microfinance. I would rather use these customers to grow in other businesses which they have a requirement. So each one of them can absorb, in my view, in metro, kind of a route test would be just to check your driver and the maid how many of them are microfinance customers or borrowed from the bank. The answer will invariably be very close to zero. But each one of them in a combined household in Mumbai is nothing less than 25,000 to 30,000 rupees. For a 30,000, I'll happily lend 1.5 lakh. But how do I reach them? How do I know them? So we have to start this exercise in terms of drilling, understanding the 6 lakh customers, somebody has got 40 lakh customers, somebody has got 90 lakh customers, but they are all just numbers in terms of accumulated to a distribution mechanism. The relationship, it's a transaction relationship. It's kind of like we give loan, take loan. We are sophisticated, decent, good-hearted money lenders at best. So nothing more than that. I think that's a transformation that will happen at some point of time. And I think that way SRB would be a trigger for this to happen in a little more accelerated manner. Because you need to necessarily have a reasonably balanced portfolio, though not regulatorily required. There is no regulation which says that I can't have 100% unsecured book. But invariably the opportunity space being so high, and I also can cater to the other side of the business, of the requirement of the customer which is taking in small deposits, how much ever small it is, that becomes the best way to understand the risk profile of a customer. I borrowed so much, I lent so much, I did whatever, but at the end of the day, I have 100 rupees surplus, happens to be for me one of the good customers.
So what is your AUM?
1,100 crores.
I just noticed in the slides that Tamil Nadu beyond in the first 1 lakh, there's a jump. So what is the reason? Is Tamil Nadu a very, people are borrowing a lot? Is there some anomaly?
I think southern markets generally, I think are used to borrowing, even at the lower end, the bottom of the pyramid, borrow more, repay in time. I am not a sociologist to have kind of gone and word, but somebody told me that even in a bank like Standard Chartered Bank, say 30 years back, the average outstanding in the savings account of an employee of a bank would nothing be less than 1 month in Mumbai, which used to be very close to zero in Chennai. And there are lots of borrowings they used to do. So if I have to mix what happened 30 years back to what it is now, or what prevalent in Tamil Nadu is something called all the chit funds, majority of them, good business in Andhra Pradesh and so on, gold loan companies across the board. And I think for one, there is an economic activity, so we have to give a little credit to that, is that there is an underlying economic activity. 1 out of every 20 customers of ours will have a son or a daughter going into an engineering college. Whether they'll get a job after that, that's different. But I think this has happened over the last 20 years. I don't see that in Maharashtra.
There's a significant jump above the 1 lakh. So above 1 lakh, how much does it go to? There's an article in between saying that Tamil Nadu, government employees have become
So it's up to you to kind of interpret. As I said, that there is not so much of a research that has really gone in, but what we see there, when we go to the field, you see real activity out there. The husband blows up some 1,000, 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees on booze in Tamil Nadu, But in spite of that, the lady works, the guy works, and combination of they put a son or a daughter into engineering college. But in the bottom of the pyramid, the thing is that when somebody gets into a job market, even at a salary of 15,000, the household income jumps by 50%. And the surplus goes up by 200-300%, assuming that they are not kind of on a negative balance. So that I don't see so much, not even in Gujarat, of that bottom of the pyramid customers. We don't operate in Karnataka, probably Karnataka also, probably will be a similar market. And large business, we have small business in Karnataka.
Does this most of this money, MFI money, is given to finance some kind of a livelihood, some kind of a business activity, or is it no question asked, just if the group is asking for money, you just lend it?
Very difficult. The money is fungible. In any small ticket loan of 15,000, the lady takes a loan and goes home until there is an emergency. The son needs some money for margin for a two-wheeler, it goes. But what we are not seeing is a blatant misuse of that in terms of consumerism. If fixing up a roof of a house is not an earning asset, yeah, maybe not. But is it unproductive? No, not at all. So when we truly want to do an exercise, it's extremely difficult to do it. What we did earlier with microfinance typical works that you were supposed to do something called loan utilization check. So you go to a lady's house and you give her money for tailoring, she shows the same machine, next cycle also I see the same machine, two other companies also see the same machine. It doesn't cost more than 7,000 rupees. A vegetable vending does not cost more than 10,000 rupees in terms of inventory, cards and whatnot to do it. So there is a little more money which goes in terms of smoothening of the cash flows, which probably is one of the reasons why the economic activity, whatever she does, happens in a smooth manner. So when we wanted to truly capture what lady does with the 20,000 I gave as cash, in many cases we found that there are more than 7 to 10 users. Bought a saree, repaid a small loan taken from a neighbor, paid the school fees, put something in the bank. So there is no way that I can capture the entire thing. Neither will it be very expensive for the customer to note down, report to me, and I have to get the data and analyze it. So technically, all of it doesn't go into income generating instantly, but a majority of it does go. A critical piece of that, it could be even 30%, but the important piece of that goes into some kind of.
So can you please, give us an insight on how do you acquire customer or these groups? What is the process?
One question which you should never ask a microfinance institution is how do you acquire customers? It's a magical unknown question. I think you usually go into a market and there is already something which is working, or you get the first group and then one leads to the 2 to 3. And if you want to see any process in a microfinance institution, you can see almost every process except one, acquiring a customer. So it happens one word of mouth probably.
So, okay, not acquiring. So how do you identify the customer or the group to lend to? In every village there is a.
We are an urban player, so I will have no idea in terms of what happens.
So in an urban player, is there a office where people come and say, this is our group and we want to borrow money, or what? How does it happen?
You reach out and then you usually start the first group, assuming that there are no microfinance institutions in a piece of Mumbai called, say, Bilapur. So you go and the first group takes time, you have to explain to them. But the SHG movement in the country had happened long back. So there is some idea in terms of what is called as in various languages as SHG group. So usually we kind of tap into one of the groups which has been there and do the first loan.
So that's some kind of field force.
It's a field force, it's completely doorstep at this point of time. You go there and then the first group, and then people see a congregation of 7-10 people doing some activity, some lady approaches the executive and says we also want to borrow, and then we say that no, you have to form a group, and then they work on it, one leads to the other. It's absolutely at this point of time.
So an average group size is how much?
Depends on company to company. For us it's 10.
10. And the entire group is liable to repay to you?
On paper.
On paper.
So best is not to put a pressure. So the way I understand microfinance is that it works as long as you don't kind of put an excessive pressure. It's better to live with a 1.5% delinquency as you would see, rather than any market, any branch where I have 100% collection is my most nightmarish branches. Because I don't know what is underlying. If there's a 1.5%, you know that there is some activity around it. Not that it is not true. There are some branches, mainly in Tamil Nadu and all, that is absolutely 100%. But the 100% does not tell you an answer either way. But so as a philosophy, I have taken as that if there's a delinquency to be seen, better see it rather than getting it now.
So one question I had was, when we look at these collection rates of 99.85%, how much of these are real in terms of, is there a lot of refinancing happening, or is this actually money that is being received on time, or they're borrowing from somewhere else, repaying you, and no, is it like a 100% collection that is real in this industry sustainably?
I will not be able to answer across what everybody else, but I can just split this answer into two. If you had asked this question before October 15, 2010, the entire hypothesis was that if you stop lending, the customer will stop paying. There are two reasons for it. One, that was how probably it was started. The other one was that there was no credit bureau at that point of time. So I won't know whether she defaulted to X. And so the credit bureau, I think, has done a wonderful thing to the customers, just like Sybil did for all the middle class. So they know that there is some process where it's called as high mark. It has become almost a nice word. So high mark will tell that whether a customer has defaulted. That has happened one. And even before that, in 2010, what we saw is that even if where we are not reaching out to the customer, we are just two small tiny branches in Andhra Pradesh, we receive 50% of the money for customers coming into the office and paying. And in the parts of Maharashtra where many AP companies were withdrawing completely and told that we are not going to lend, they got near 100% collections. Their receivables were no different or worse off. So in somewhere, if that was SKs, I think completely almost stopped for that 1.5 years almost. But in spite of that, their collection percentage apart from AP reflected no different than when they were lending full time. So that's on the larger side. But if any unsecured business more money chases than is required, it will go into stock market, it will go into one product, it will go into lending. One of the risks that we run, if there is lots of money chasing the customer, is that customers become mini money lenders. There is no evidence seen in the field, but likely that's a possibility that will happen. So that's true for that. But at this point of time, do the customers really borrow to repay? Not so much, because 40% of the customers don't want a second loan. On their own, they drop out. So my retention ratio of one cycle to the other is less than 60%. So if they are that desperate and they have to do it, they would have kept on borrowing. That's not. They don't stand in the queue to borrow. Please, that's not the case at all. So we have to really slog it out, just like in any other business, to sell a loan to a good customer.
One question from my side, sir. We are seeing this across the microfinance players, that you have a business that grows, so maybe in your case it grows at 20%, for someone else it grows at 30%. That's a question of your choice.
70 and 90%.
Okay. Okay. You have fat spreads, you figured out your costs, the systems, the technology is in place, everything is working like a dream. Delinquencies are unbelievably low, if I may say so, and they are really low. It's not that, we are not questioning, we are not saying that these are cooked up numbers, but operationally, here on, what are the corners through which the risk can creep in? What are the risks to the business? Is it that we'll see yields and spreads falling over a period of time? Is that how you see it? Or will we actually see a blowout on asset quality? Will we see growth tapering off very quickly? Or where do you think, where are the problems? Where are the dark clouds? It just looks like an open field for 10 more years to jog. It can't be so easy.
As I said, that I can sum it up in one word, a rear view mirror. Past was good, the present is good, the future. Banks have entered. HDFC Bank lends at 26% to the segment. And imagine a 6% cost of borrowing and a 26% lending. Yes Bank enters, RBI enters, everybody enters. So when everybody enters, then invariably, just share by logic, nothing that I have insight into microfinance, too much of a liquidity chasing a customer like us, where there is no equivalent benefits available for a saving side of the business. The banks which have entered, the BC business is a flop show in the country across the board, except for remittance and direct benefit transfer. The other one which is the most profitable is the so-called BC business. So the return on equity of some of the BCs who are operating for these banks is closer to 100% ROE, or probably more. The 3 crore equity somebody started 3 years back makes a 2 crore profit per month. So these will certainly lead to stress curves, because the easiest one is do that, keep lending more. It's an unsecured, I give 20, I want to do 25. But the credit cost in this industry has been very close to nil. I'm sure that it will work up at some point of time. When that happens, I think automatically there are lots of people who will all look at the processes, will look at markets, will look at many of these. But from an opportunity space point of view, I think if we drill down on the relationship, if it moves from a transaction to relationship, which I guess it will happen through the SFB model or the payment banks model. Once you understand the cash flows and are able to give both the sides of the customer requirement, I have no doubt that the potential can be substantially higher.
So is transitioning to an SFB a natural next step for all MFIs if you want to grow up and be more meaningful?
Not necessarily you have to convert, but today if somebody is not an SFB, a good tie-up with the payment bank will do the job. So today, probably as SFBs are getting converted, the cost of borrowing becomes, in my view, at least for us, they'll be probably higher by 100 bits rather than lower by 200 bits, because we used to borrow at 14% all inclusive, so that it made sense when you're applying. As we're kind of moving on, we're borrowing at 10.5%, 11%. And even if you pay a fixed deposit of 8% cost of mobilization and a CRR, SLR of 150 bips, it comes to close to 11.5% plus all the things. But in the long run, from a customer point of view, if I continue to only one side unique product, then it builds up one kind of, I just don't know what I'm kind of building as a portfolio. The other one is that I miss out probably all other opportunities which the customer requires as she moves up. So logically, I think the NBFC MFIs will have to move into a bank-like structure, not necessarily they will have to go on everything on their own.
Sir, we have seen a lot of inflation in the ticket sizes. Recently, even Equita reported some 20,000 on ticket size. It was probably at a very low level at 12,000. So, this pertains to a slide to you have a distribution of EMI. And how has this movement been in the last 1 or 2 years? Because I don't know whether provide that higher EMI.
The tickets have gone up by around 50% in the last 2 years. So if I were to just work backwards on a very crude basis, then probably the overall segment would not cross around 5,000 in some time back. So this was some comforting number.
But have they become so much more capable to pay 50% higher EMI in the last 2 years? So is that a
It depends
concern?
on city to city, metro to metro. For example, if it's Mumbai, Chennai, I can probably say even for ride drive, an auto or a taxi, or forget about getting into Uber and all of that. The household income is closer to 25 to 30,000, all put together. It will drop off substantially if I go to smaller towns. In villages, probably it will be seasonal. Maybe since I'm not a rural player, I'm not a very 7,000 to 8,000 on a 30,000 is an absolutely table number. But on a psychological basis, an amount which is borrowed for insecure goes on and on. Then it leads to some kind of a fatigue. Okay. You will see that probably in a very well structured business, like even a truck funding, you sometimes see a transporter doesn't pay for trucks. For the same company, if the truck has met with an accident, 5 trucks met with an accident, I'm not paying. As soon as I get repaired, I'll pay. The remaining will continue to pay. So when there is an underlying productive asset, the repayment capacity is far more forthcoming on its own. But in this case, it's an unsecured, even if one of the productivity is not visible. So beyond a point, I would say that, yeah, 5,000, 6,000 would be the number is expected which are not.
What's your ticket size? Because it appears to me as if it is dependent on the microfinance companies to raise the ticket size, because probably they've had a first cycle ceiling to them, and now they have increased the ceiling by 33-34% in the last few quarters. So how are you also increasing your ceiling for the ticket size?
We have, but what we just did is that we increased the tenor from 1.5 years, 1 year. So I said that no, if we can give them for 1 year, how does it really change if I'm going to give them for 3 years? So 100 crores of a portfolio which you'll see in Maharashtra is of customers where I've given loans of around 50,000 for a 3-year period, EMI of 2,500, which will be similar for a 25,000 rupees loan for a 1-year period. And we've checked with the customers whether they can repay by a banking mechanism. The check clearance rate is higher than a 2-wheeler check clearance rate in a normal industry. The first check clearance rate is around close to 80%, and we do the collection for the remaining 20. So what it in some way showed us is that we will have to kind of break the monotony and get back into making the customer absolutely bankable, which is expensive, which takes time. But then the customers start creating their own track record. So then they become far more responsible in terms of both borrowing and repaying as a customer, because they know that whatever they do, they are solely responsible and it reflects on their risk. I think we are being, if I have nothing to do with the business or an SFB or whatever, I do see that there will be a huge shift which will move from being treated as a number to customer being treated as an individual, hence trying to build a track record, hence borrowing. So lots of work will go on that in terms of, and I'm sure that segment, even if it is 10% of the microfinance segment, it's going to be substantially large.
The whole AP crisis, did that show us that if there is no incremental lending, they are not going to pay back? And it just proved that if there's in AP, what happened is there's nobody lent to them, so they didn't pay back. So that whole crisis did prove that this is all on the back of incremental lending.
they're paying the person back.
But the cost of sounding politically not correct. In AP, the customers were motivated or rather forced not to pay in some sense. Okay. So we left the branch open in a place called Chittoor and Palamner. We said we will not shift the branch because the customers should know where they have to come. They are not going to searching around whether we shifted the office. We retained the same employees and we said that since we had the luxury of having only 2 branches, we said we'll retain the staff, pay the entire salary, be there, and told them when you are leaving, we'll give you 3 months salary. We stayed on. 50% of our payments came where the customers came and paid. So I said that, yeah, I think 90% of generally. So the usual position is that the poor are better than middle class and so on. Leave out the corporates. I think the retail, the behavior is the same. 90% of the customers are very good with themselves, know what they do. 3% of the customers little leverage themselves. 2% are their intent to borrow is itself is intent to default. Okay. I think it is no different that this segment is about 99 and so on. Because it's a small loan at the doorstep collection, it happens to be 99. So in Andhra also, had they been left with the condition that I put is that you can't visit the customer. The customers are forced to kind of not to repay. So the whole momentum was in terms of asking the customer, making them feel guilty if they paid. So I think that was an extreme scenario.
I'm sorry, but see, let's say 5 of us are borrowing. My borrowing is 50,000. My interest on that is about 24%. So 25% of that is about 12,000, 62,000.
6,000 in 1 year.
Sorry?
It's average, it's tapering. It doesn't stay at 50. 50 becomes 0. So 25,000, 20% is around 5%, 5,000. 6,000 will be the interest cost.
6,000. But then next year, the amount of loan that I'm getting from MFIs goes to 56,000. So basically, I'm paying interest to MFIs from the loan that they are giving me. You know.
You're assuming that they just borrowed and then blew up somewhere else and then take one more loan. It's not necessarily the case. It goes into an activity, including a smoothing activity. Sometimes if a lady has to necessarily borrow for a marriage, I can't go and stop that. She would have borrowed from a local money lender where the interest rate is around 5% per month flat, and he wants the principal to be repaid at one go, not through an installment. So this is where I think MFI is coming. So far so good. I think the progress has to be in terms of make the customers the customers and work out on products where you are dealing with the customer directly rather than only as a mechanism to approve. I think the industry will evolve that way, and probably the trigger of that could even be delinquency showing up in so many places and becoming 3-4%. So delinquency necessarily happening in the industry for me looks like a good thing to happen rather than a bad thing to happen. It will trigger the change that kind of. Hopefully, it doesn't really happen beyond 3%.
So what are the regulated risks you're seeing?
Okay. The Malagam Committee report becomes a bedrock for the entire revival which has happened. So if you go back and read the Malagam Committee report, it gave all the workings and said, if all this is done, companies, NBFC, MFIs will be able to earn a steady state ROE of 15%. Okay. But the numbers of the last year and this year and what it looked like last year and before that and this year is probably will be inching towards an 18 to 20% mark. There is always this possibility of the so-called margin from 10 probably at some point becoming 9 and 8. Then the dynamics of the profitability also changes. So it's not a given that this is going to stay on forever. So probably any other NBFC will take pride in saying my ROE is 21, 22, 23. So we'll have to do the reverse. It's not more than 18% is what you will see by and large. So I think that's probably one regulatory risk. The other regulatory, not risk, the regulatory possibility which will probably help the industry in some sense in terms of not getting overrated is if the bank comes and says, if our regulator says, how can a large private sector bank operate at 400, 500, 600 basis points more than the second largest, the third largest MFI. So pricing could become the lead for not driving the volume substantially. The other one obviously the trigger is a natural market triggers like delinquency increases in bonds.
Can you talk about your experience with collection efficiency and how it moves after shocks like cyclones or floods?
We had 2-3 instances. One was swine flu as we just started. We didn't see any difference except that we were not able to go, and so we collected at a common place. We didn't conduct meetings. The next was the floods in Orissa a couple of years back. 1 month and next month it was back on track. Chennai, it kind of got, we expected that it will go on for a couple of months. It happened in December. Jan was when we felt the delinquency. February back to normal. This is an urban scenario.